like following you, like, hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love this.
But no, I love
so
this one. It's just like a nice relaxing
project to do.
Yeah, definitely. So I brought in both my baby quilts. So this is the quilt that I made Emily. I haven't made her any clothes yet, but quilts she is. She's good for. Yeah, that's hand stitching there. My style is more like traditional quilt patterns. Like this is a traditional quilt block called a Ohio Star. Like traditional quilt blocks in modern fabrics or vice versa, like vintage fabrics in modern inspired quilt patterns. I definitely like gravitate towards stars. Just they look so classic to me. I didn't quite finish the quilting until after she was born, but it was a nice, like, she was happy just chilling out on the floor while I did the last little bit.
My first quilt was for Joan. For her baby quilt.
Yeah.
And it's something funny about how I didn't necessarily think to make a quilt until like I was having a baby. And I just like had suddenly this feeling of like, I need to make a quilt.
Yes.
Having a baby.
Yes. I think it's part of like the nesting process or something like that. I love how the hand quilting comes up on the back. So yeah, it definitely adds like a really nice texture. And this one's been washed. Yeah, this one's been washed a couple of times. I'm not a pre-washer of quilt fabrics just because I do love the crinkle. This is what I made for Henry. Yeah, the pattern that I followed, you don't cut out the squares individually, you sew them into strips first, and then there's a clever technique to make it all. But yeah, no, I made this one for him. There's definitely been like a few special quilts that have, I guess, been like little like milestones or turning points for the business as well, like the daisy one behind me. Yeah, like I'm still selling kits for that one because it's just become a bit of a classic for the shop.
As soon as you walk in, it's just like,
And the Ramona behind me as well. That one went really well as well. So yeah.
It says, hello, I'm Claire. I'm mum to our children Emily and Henry, and with the support of my wonderful husband David, I'm so grateful to have this little fabric and quilt shop. I hope that this space of pretty fabrics and quilts inspires you.
I was saying to Chris on the way over, it's like, you know, in this kind of world of social media, you see all these like beautiful like things that people make in quilts or outfits, but it's like nice to know the person behind it.
Yeah, definitely. Mum did quilting when I was growing up and I didn't really show a whole lot of interest in it, but I remember we had like a shared family room that she would have everything set up over one side and I'd just be like doing Barbies or drawing or something. So like we were always sort of that family that did hobbies together. Mum just kept quilting all the teenage years, and it wasn't until I think I was in like maybe my last or second to last year of uni, I was studying accounting. And like I honestly don't remember any other reason that like I just woke up and I was just like, oh, I think I want to make a quilt today. I'd had like basic sewing, like I'd made a few pouches, and my sister-in-law and we had like a little Etsy shop that we just made like little zipper pouches and coasters. I woke up one morning and I said to Mum, like, I think I want to make a quilt today. And she was so excited. And I say to everyone, like I like joke that she was more excited like that day than the day I got engaged. We went straight to Pinterest, like found a quilt pattern to do, one that like it would challenge me but wouldn't like turn me off the hobby completely. So yeah, we found the pattern and then we went down to the fabric shop and picked out all the fabric, washed all of those, and then I learned how to cut out fabrics and sew them back together again, which is essentially what patchwork is, cutting them up and sewing them back into different shapes and designs. And it was a Christmas quilt. We used Christmas fabrics because I love Christmas, and I did like some stitch in the ditch, so just quilting along the seams, and then she did some decorative stitching around like on the borders. And then, she taught me how to bind it together. We would have watched something like Love Actually or something while we did that together. And that was our first quilt together. So, yeah.
I think you actually had the bug after that one.
Probably not so much. I reckon I had probably like maybe 2 years that I didn't make a quilt after that. We had sort of like a family reunion in New York, which was so nice. Yeah, we went to found like a few quilt shops. Some were like the more traditional, I guess, quilt shops, and the other ones were more like the space that I've tried to create here, like focused on the modern fabrics. Going through these quilt shops and sort of just, like seeing all the nice fabrics. We brought home a lot of fabric with us. Shortly after we got back from that trip, that one of my work friends had said that she was getting married and we were invited to the wedding. So I thought, I want to make a quilt for her. Sort of became like my thing to make a wedding quilt for my friends who were getting married. So I had to make quite a few, which was awesome. We've been to several of these friends' houses since, and I still see the wedding quilt there, which is so nice. And I made a quilt for one of my old work friends, and she posted a picture of her. She just had twins and they're lying on this quilt. I'm just like, that's my quilt. So it's just really nice that they've sort of become part of these people's homes, which is exactly what I intended them for. So yeah. I was in a fairly high pressure. I was an auditor straight out of uni. I was probably doing that for 3 or 4 years. And then I went to a disability organisation to do their accounting there. So that was definitely a lower pressure, fairly 9 to 5. And I could come home and do my sewing after that job and the weekend. So that lifestyle suited me well at the time. And of course I always would have wanted more time to sew. I had my Etsy shop that I was making quilts for and selling them, a bit of an income stream that I could lower my hours and sort of start to balance the two a little bit more. My husband and I were both working from home, and I was sort of starting to think about what I could do during maternity leave. Wanted to use the money that I'd made from selling quilts to invest in the fabric. Bolter fabric is not cheap, not cheap to buy at all. I knew that I would want something on maternity leave to keep me occupied. It wouldn't be super practical to be churning out all these quilts, even though I did think babies slept more, that they would just go to sleep and you could just go sew and everything else would just magically sort itself out. But it still took us a little while to make that leap. So from the start, my non-negotiable of it is that any fabrics I buy, I would use in my own quilts as well. So even if I bought these 6 bolts of fabric and no one bought them, I would at least be able to make a lot of quilts from this fabric, knowing that I love the fabrics and I'd be able to use them in that way. And that's sort of just how I choose to buy my fabrics now, is just do I like the fabric? Yes, then if I can, then I'll buy it. So grateful for sort of how the business has sort of grown in line with my motherhood journey as well, and sort of everything has fallen into place with each stage of parenthood that we're up to as well. But I love coming here and opening up the door and walking in here every morning. It's like a breath of fresh air for me. So yeah. It'd be great to have a fully me-made wardrobe one day. Is yours fully me-made?
I would say it's 85-90%.
That's awesome. Yeah. I have a lot of trouble committing to fabrics that I'm going to wear myself versus in quilts, because in quilts they just become sometimes just such a small part of it that if you're not sure about it, you can often just sneak it in. Whereas something that you're going to wear, it's obviously it's obviously there. So in a sewing sense, definitely I'd love to get more confident in dressmaking, and I think my mum and I are going to do a couple of classes together. I obviously know how to sew, but then fitting it properly. And mum's an amazing dressmaker. She made my wedding dress as well, which is amazing. So obviously that's a top goal. I reckon there's always something else you can learn. So yes, she made my wedding dress, but she wants to do these lessons so she can learn how to fit her pants better for her body. Being a bit more confident with dressmaking is my sewing goal. And then quilts, I have so many quilts on the list to make. And because every fabric that I get into the shop, I love. The amount of fabrics that I have to use and the amount of quilts that I want to make is definitely, there's definitely an imbalance between the time that I have to make these quilts. That Sweet Sunday quilt. I try to make what I want to make now, if I have the time and the money to to do it. And I think seeing so many new patterns come through the shop, like there's just always going to be something that I want to make, either for the shop or for myself. But not compare yourself to other businesses. And there was a podcast I listened to a couple of years ago now, but like I'm always repeating the advice in my head that like, I think she said a rising tide lifts all boats or something, that like there's room for everyone. And yeah, like I think there's a lot to be said about small businesses supporting each other as well. Yeah, even if you're doing like the same thing, then yeah, there's room for everyone. So yeah. For me, I also often need to remind myself to just make what I like and what I like to make, because we sometimes take the shop down to the showgrounds. They have like craft exhibitions like Craft Alive in July, and I'm doing one at the end of March. I like to have as many new samples for those because we hang them up like behind us in the booth. Have all the stock there and the quilts are behind us. Like they're to sell the kits, but then also to be inspiration to customers as well. I felt so much pressure on myself to make like all new samples. I didn't want to have like any repeated quilts that I'd had in the previous year. And then after a while I said, oh, like you're literally the only person who's going to notice. Like even when I'm trying to think of these new samples, I'm often thinking of like what I've seen on social media that people really seem to be enjoying. And I think for me, there's like a difference between seeing something on social media that I really like, but I wouldn't necessarily make it for myself. So often I think I'm trying to force ideas into like creating a quilt, but then there's always just something about them that I'm like not totally happy with. And then sometimes I'm able to remind myself, but usually it's Mum or David who say like, but are you making what you want to make? And then I'll sort of just put a bit more thought into what I can see in our own house. And then that usually helps me like get an idea of what to make, and then it will sort of all flow from there. So yeah, I think like, yeah, doing what you want to do, and like I make the quilts that I want to make and my people find me. Having bought our first bolts of fabric before Emily was born, we used the money that I'd made from selling quilts to buy the first lot of fabric, and I think the business grew maybe a bit slower than what I'd like. I was hoping it would grow a bit quicker, but then being a new mum, I also didn't have the time that I needed to put into the business to make it grow a little bit quicker as well. So yeah, that just brings it back to the whole be patient. Be patient and it will, you'll find the time when you can.
You love
That's so good.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, it makes me happy, and even just, yeah, like seeing all the colours just makes me happy. Yeah. Take it one step at a time. I reckon that there's a lot of small steps that go into making this beautiful quilt at the end. I think there's often something in the quilting process that you'll sort of always find overwhelming. I often find it's called basting, so the process of putting the backing, the layer of wadding in between, and then the quilt top on top of that. It takes a long time. Some people do it on the floor. I have a cutting table in my sewing room that I can do it on there, but that's always just an overwhelming part of the process for me that I really just don't enjoy doing. But the rest of the process is so enjoyable. But I think just taking it one step at a time, that you don't necessarily need to have it all figured out at the start. If I have a beginner come in that I want to make a quilt, where do I start? I often suggest to just find a fabric on the shelf that they just love, that they either really want in the front of the quilt, or if they want to use it as a backing, can help them sort of like choose the colours and different fabrics like based on that fabric that they really like. And I think having that fabric that they really like is just a good motivator for them to get started. I think like they already feel like they're somewhat like connected to that quilt already. If it's a quilt that you can just sort of do one block at a time, just do the one block at a time and try not to get overwhelmed by the process. And it's okay if it takes a long time. Anything you make definitely marks a point in time in your life. There's a quilt that I made just after we got married, and I think it had one really special fabric in there that I would have bought in one of the quilt shops that we visited overseas, and I would not make the same quilt myself again. The colours are really quite a bit brighter than what I'd go for now, and it represented that time that we started our married life together, and so I love it and we still use it, and it's one of Emily's favourite quilts to snuggle under. Like I said before, like every quilt, like it serves its purpose for a particular point in time. Yeah, and even if you're just working on a quilt that you like you might start it after being motivated to start or work on it for ages, but then you suddenly don't feel like working on it anymore. It still served a purpose for that little time that you did, and it will be there for when you're ready to pick it up again. It will be there waiting for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
How exciting.
What do you reckon?
So fun.
Oh, so
That was
Honestly.
fun, yeah. We're
I
excited.
want to meet David then. He sounds like a legend, eh?
I have no idea. This was out of my comfort zone, but I'm glad that it is.
Very creative it is.
No, absolutely. One pops up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then your store came up.
Oh, look, that's the ones that I sent you to share.
Like the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And one of the
Good.
spot can be.
I like how, like, something that brings people together. Like, that is
Definitely. Oh, that's fine. No, all good.
Awesome. Alrighty. We'll go outside the front.